Hello, today we are going to be talking about how to read a title commitment. If you do not know how to do this yet, stick around right after this. It is a skill all real estate professionals need to know.
Hey there, you guys, and welcome to Real Estate Divas. Today we're going to be talking about title commitments and going over how to read your title commitment. I'm Jer'Leigh Thompson with Texel Real Estate.
And I'm Kristin Gerst with Capricorn Mortgage Investments. And how many real estate professionals do not know how to do this?
I'm going to go with 99.
Yeah. Yes. I'm sure there's been a study somewhere, and I used to be guilty of it as well until my attorney pulled me over, my goodness, probably 6 or 7 years ago, and said, you need to know how to do this. And she taught me how to read a title commitment, what to look for. And it doesn't take too long to learn, and you do get comfortable with it. But I know when I first started in real estate, I used to open this thing up and I'd be like, oh, that's nice. Close.
Yeah. File it.
I don't know what this is, but that's not for me.
Yep. They know what they're doing.
I know.
Yeah, they know what they got. And I'm the same way, I've been doing this now about 17 years. And I get that from the title company and I would just forward it on to my client. Hey, this is for your information.
Isn't it crazy?
And
the client, the buyer, is sitting there going, oh, well, my realtor, if there was a problem with it, he or she would have told me, hey, you need to review this.
Yes. But that's also part of, there's always a discussion with clients whenever you're going to closing. Are you going with me? Will you help me? Will you help explain those documents as they're doing everything? Well, I'm not your closer. I don't work for the title company. And I would have to explain to my clients, I'm not familiar with most of those pages. I mean, I know what's coming, but there's 60 pages you're going to be signing your initials and your signature to. I don't know those. That's their job.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing you have to know when dealing with a title commitment, title policy, anything dealing with the actual closing. Your realtor is an expert on the market and on the property, the actual house, and what price you should pay.
And those contracts that go along with it, they need to be well versed in that. But
anything dealing with title commitment, title policy, or the actual closing and closing documents needs to be, if you have questions about it, you need to be talking to the title company, because the title company works for you as the buyer.
Exactly. And then the other thing is if you're a realtor out there and you're like me in my first, 10 to 12 years of real estate, where I just passed on the title commitment, learn to read a title commitment. It doesn't take that long. And then, like you said, find somebody that's a reliable source. If you're still in real estate after 10 years, you have got a reliable title company that you're working with that would be happy to sit down with you and walk you through the process so you can look like and be that much more of an expert on the subject.
Exactly. So just remember that, everybody has the responsibilities, and your realtor is not a lawyer.
Not an attorney.
And your realtor most likely has no idea how to read this anyways.
Yep.
And we'll just forward this to you. So you need to take matters into your own hands, learn how to read this, learn what questions to ask. And, if once you look at enough of these and really look at them and read them, you will start to see, hey, I haven't seen that before. Is that a bad thing? Is it a good thing? And again, every property transaction is different, and depending on where you are, and we'll get into that in a minute, about mineral rights and leases and, how do you read your title commitment and do that. So in a nutshell, what is a title commitment?
That's just basically saying that, hey, this property is free and clear. You can go ahead or not. Yeah, it's basically the search on the property to make sure that you can close on it and you're getting what you're paying for.
Which is
the residence that is free and clear of all liens.
Right.
Unless there's liens and.
So the important thing to remember is when you're looking at a title commitment that this is a commitment to give you insurance.
Yes.
Against anything,
Claims.
any claims that possibly could go on. So if you buy this piece of property, the title company who's giving you this insurance wants to make sure that all of these liens are cleared up, because if they miss something and don't,
it could come back on them.
Correct, and they're going to have to pay for it. So it really is also in the best interest of the title company to make sure that all of these things are handled.
Absolutely.
But you also need to be aware of what's there for things that, maybe aren't, maybe the title company will still close on it as an exception to the title policy, but you're not willing to buy it
with it still in place.
With it still in place.
Exactly.
And so those are a lot of things we need to know.
The other thing, which is the first thing that we're going to be talking about, is did they pull the title commitment on the right property?
Mm-hmm.
Because that happens.
Oh, it happens a lot.
Yeah. Didn't it happen to you?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And in fact, I couldn't buy the piece of property because they pulled, whoever foreclosed on the wrong legal description. So then I'm buying the right one, but because the foreclosure was all botched up, never figured it out until getting there. I have no idea what happened with that piece of property, but it was months, it was going to be months down the road to even buy it, because they had to fix the whole thing. So all title commitments are broken into 4 major sections: Schedule A, Schedule B, Schedule C, and Schedule D. First, going to talk about Schedule A, and the reason you always remember what Schedule A is about, it's about actual facts. And these are basically going to be the facts of who owns the property, how much is, what's the sales price, what's the title policy good for, who's buying it. Let's go and take a look at what Schedule A looks like. And the first highlighted section there is little like one section .c, and this will just go in and look and see, hey, are everybody's names spelled correctly here? Does everything look right?
Exactly. And if it's not, then you need to go ahead and come back to your title company and say, hey, there's obvious mistakes right here. One, my name's not spelled right, or because what's there is going to be now put on every single document. And when I said there's multiple documents that you're going to be going through, we're talking about, you're sitting at the closing table. Those are that pile of paper, the 60 pages, 150 pages, whatever it is, depending on your type of loan that you're signing. And now your name's wrong on all of it.
Yeah. And that happens.
Yeah.
And so this is the time to catch it at the very beginning of a transaction, right after you get your title commitment. And then going back over to that Schedule A, and go ahead and, all right, so this section is important because notice it's got the name of the woman, either the buyer, or in this case, this is a mortgage note that I'm buying because I don't buy real property. And this would be who owns it. And then notice it says a single woman after that. A lot of times, depending on what state you're in, Texas is a community property state. So it is very important to know, is that person married or is that person single? Divorced? If they're divorced and they got divorced or married after this, they might not be the only person
that can sign and sell that property.
And that's something that your title company is going to verify. In this case, it says a single woman on it, so it's, they're going to verify that she's still single and everything's okay.
But single woman, you can go, all right, I don't need
a little more.
I don't need another person's name right there. Nice dance.
I know.
It's about empowerment. Single woman can own shit in 2021. Okay.
All right. And then that last one. So this really freaks a lot of, especially new real estate investors out, and even some realtors who maybe not quite sure that they can read that and make sure it's okay. Jerleigh, where do you find the legal description that you can verify?
The legal description right there, the lot and the block, all of this you can find on the tax rolls. That correlate to that address. When you're reading that, and most realtors should know this because you have to put in the legal description in the MLS. However, if you auto-populate from the tax rolls, then that just auto-populates into your MLS. So whereas I used to have to write all of my contracts, now with everything on DocuSign or on .loop, and everything being pre-filled for you, I think we're back to a time where a lot of realtors are like, lot and block? Where do I find that? How do I know what lot and block is? Because they're used to it auto-filling.
I have a friend who became a brand new realtor in the last 6 months, had no clue that all of this information was just on tax rolls.
Yep.
And then didn't know that you could go find tax rolls for like every county.
Yeah.
Just
well, and like I said, it's because it used to be all manual. You had to fill it in, so I'm writing everything out. I had to look it up, see, figure out what the tax roll said in order to put it into the MLS or to write a contract. Now, because everything pre-fills and auto-fills and pulls from the tax rolls, you don't have to know that.
But you still do have to verify it.
You do.
Because they get it wrong. And all of a sudden you will find they've somehow put in the wrong address to that property. They've maybe transcribed a couple numbers, and that legal description is in some cases not even close to what it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
Ryan?
Well, I was just going to say, back to what Jerleigh was saying about how, like, the auto-population of it, like, before that, it's just natural curiosity to go, what's a lot, what's a block? And if you're looking at that all the time, you're going to research it. You're going to, well, you would hope.
Yep.
You're going to research it.
Yeah,
You're
going to look at, which leads you to looking at surveys and going through that and going, oh, what's the difference between a lot? What's a block? What is it in correlation to all this? Oh, it's the blah, 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 blah. And you go down that rabbit hole. But if it's auto-populating, your brain, your eyes, you might just skip it and never even go down that research loophole or rabbit hole.
Also, this is in order to get your test, and in order to pass your test, this is something that's covered in real estate classes. But there's so much stuff that's covered. You're not remembering all of that. You're not remembering any of it, unless it's something that you have to pay attention to, and which you should be. But now you don't have to like you used to.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not the hardest thing to do. You go to the tax rolls.
No, it's not.
You
hard.
look at the lot. You look at the block. Look at the subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, as long as you've got those main pieces, you can go, all right, this is most likely correct.
Yep. So moving on to once you've verified the address, we're buying the correct property here.
And by the way, that took less than a minute for you to verify the names, the sales price, and that the lot, block, and subdivision are correct on that. So your legal description is most likely right. So there
we're like, there it is.
Schedule B. This is buyer's information. It is literally like for your information on what is going to be covered, what is going to be exempt. So they have exceptions, and they're like, hey, we're not going to cover all of this stuff. A lot of it goes into things like if you have mineral leases, which we have a lot of that in Texas, they're not going to cover that there is definitely a lease on it, because sometimes it's not recorded. They don't know.
Yep.
It is the buyer's responsibility to make sure and get a copy of that lease, and and know what's going on with it. All of those things, you just need to read just quickly through one of them. They're all basically about the same on what they're going to
insure.
Mm-hmm. So just be careful with that. If you go to next slide, this here, you want to be a little more specific. So here it references that there are like easements that they won't insure. Mm-hmm. Or utilities that are put in right next to your property. There are people who buy properties and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to put a pool in, but they never read
what the
exclusions and easements were, and they find out that they cannot build a pool in that backyard
because of the easements.
Because there's easements running right through their backyard, and there is some natural gas line down there, or there's electrical or something.
Well, and what people don't typically know until they start to build, because I just went through this, but is you don't know these lines now that they're burying so many lines. And obviously you can get some of them moved, but not all of them. You know, they don't always stay on the perimeters of your property. Sometimes it is right through the center of your property. And this is what would tell you whether that's there.
Usually,
yeah. There are those hidden ones.
Usually.
Yeah.
So if that is important to you and you're buying a piece of property that says, oh my gosh, I'm going to absolutely put a pool in this property, you need to first read that you can.
Yep.
And just make sure. I mean, if that's a make or break for you, you might walk from this one. In addition, if you're going to, like, you buy some acreage and you're like, I'm going to put horses on it. There are exceptions to that in certain homeowners associations in certain parts of town that you can't keep rural
Livestock.
animals or
Yep.
livestock. And that includes, people love chickens. Well, you can't have chickens.
Yep. Yeah, it's something that you definitely have to pay attention to. And then that's also why whenever you sign a contract on a house, it says that you have so many days. It depends on whatever you've negotiated in that contract. You have so many days to walk away from this transaction once you receive the commitment. Because you don't know, kind of like an inspection, you don't know what you don't know until they pull this. You may not know all of that, and hopefully they're getting all the information, but
they might not be. And,
yeah.
This is going to, completely blow their mind that, oh my gosh, I had to have chickens and it says I can't have chickens.
Yep. Give me my fresh eggs.
Where am I going to do my chickens? And then again, we're back on all leases, grants, exceptions, or reservations of coal, lignite, oil, gas, and other minerals. That's a big thing in a lot of states, and so you need to go find a copy of that if you suspect that the mineral rights have already been sold.
Well, and that is something, because I didn't always realize that either early on in my real estate career, is that title companies couldn't always pull that. If you're very concerned, you can hire that out. That is something, there is a whole business surrounded by, that's all they do is make sure that there aren't any mineral rights that have been leased or sold on a property. So if that's something that you're extremely concerned about, I mean, it'll cost you, but you can hire that out.
And it's going to be more prevalent in certain
areas. Yeah.
This is just a random tidbit, but that I thought was fascinating. A former employer of mine years ago, one of the things he was trying to do before I left, and I don't know if he was ever, and I don't know if this is legal, I don't know if he was able to accomplish it, but when he was assigning properties, if he could extract the mineral rights out of the assignment to where he, even though he's assigning the property over, he's basically keeping mineral rights for free.
I haven't seen
I don't know if he was
I
able
haven't seen
to
it
do
on
that.
contracts for a long time.
Yeah.
About 10 years, but 10, 15 years ago, you used to see it a lot. It
Yeah.
would be, say, mineral
Genius.
rights reserved or
Well,
will
I
remain.
mean, there's a whole different, now there's, because of that, because it got so prevalent, then there's a whole, in Texas, amendment just for pertaining to the mineral rights. Who owns them, who's keeping them, where they're being
But just
leased.
think about the power of that. If
Yeah.
you're a
Yeah.
big wholesaling shop and you're doing 50 to 100 properties a year,
Yeah.
and you're
And
keeping
the
50 to 100 mineral rights a year, you only need one to pop.
Yep.
So I don't know. Again, I don't know if he ever accomplished it, but I thought that was
It
cool.
was not when I was buying and selling a ton of property, that was not something I ever did. I'm like, I don't even want to mess with that. But yeah, I know a bunch of guys who were. It is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Now, whatever comes of it, I'd like to know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
especially if it's in a big city, what are you going to go do? You're going to go drill in somebody's backyard that,
Yeah.
you wholesaled their house 12 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Ryan's like, oh, I'd do it.
It's for free.
They found gold back there. I'm going to go
Yeah.
mine it. So anyway, looking at Schedule B, just pay attention to kind of these important areas. One, that first top box, that's the easements that you will, see, and you've got to know, all right, so you can't, there's a 15-foot building setback line right there on your property. So, and then there's a 30-foot building setback line on the east property line. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
How big's that plot? What are we talking? Like now, once you build in those easements, then you're in a small, tight little box, depending on the size of that lot.
Right. And so if you were thinking you were putting your pool almost right up there next to your fence line, you're not. So again, those are all of those things you have to look at. And then what you're going to see is, just for your own information on that bottom block, what liens are on there. Sometimes this can get lengthy.
Yeah. Sometimes that can be a page, 2 pages. It depends.
This is actually some pretty clean title, which is
I'm
always excited about.
Yeah.
All right. Next, Schedule C.
Schedule C. Here we go.
Schedule C is the important one. This is the one that you really need to pay attention to. On this first page, you can see that we have crossed out. So this is everything that needs to be cleared from title in order for you to purchase. And so they're crossing this out because it's a note being sold. So it's not like, obviously they don't need to release this debt because I am buying it. So they're not going to be doing a release of lien or anything like that. And that's why this is crossed out. Typically, if this was a piece of property, that would all be lit up and not crossed out. And you would know that you're going to need to get, a release of lien for whoever that lender is before you can take possession of that property.
Gotcha. So basically just another spot where the lien holders are, because that was on the other page too, right?
Yes.
And so now here they are listed again, but listed
as the list of what needs to be cleared
in order to have clean title on that property.
Schedule C, clear to close. What do we need to do in order to get clear title on this property? And in order to do that, here's a list of everything that needs to happen.
Gotcha.
So part 2 of Schedule C. So again, this is a pretty nice clean title. You want to box that top one for me, Ryan? All of these things, you need to prove that, one, Priscilla Scott there is a single woman. She's not married, to avoid any problems down the road. And thanks, Ryan. Power to the single woman. And then if it's a corporation and not an individual, they're going to need corporate docs. This is an IRA for my son. Right away, the funny thing with this is there is a typo on here that this is my oldest son's name, and I noticed, and it's supposed to be my oldest son's name, but on the first page it's in my youngest son's name.
Ah.
So again, and I think it's supposed to be in this one's, but I'm not sure. I got to go back and look at the contracts. So again, right there, on this title commitment, there's
mistakes.
There's already a mistake, and you're kind of going, gosh, how did that happen from one side to the other? And it does a lot. And
well, it's people are in charge of this. People make mistakes, which is why the whole reason why we're doing this is so that you can walk us through and show us exactly what to look for.
Yes. And then, there's the seller. That's the person. GMA'd Investments is going to, I think that's the actual bird dog wholesaler that I got that from.
Gotcha.
Not the note holder. So it's kind of fun. And then Schedule D. Schedule D is kind of, I forget, I guess it stands for, disclosure, but it's also, I just go Schedule D for dumb. This is not really.
Schedule D for dumb. Okay.
This is one of those pages that is so not important to you. I mean, it just basically tells you
how much they're charging.
How much they're charging.
Yeah.
And who's getting paid. So this is less important. Really, I really focus on, Schedule A, making sure everybody's names are right. Prices are right. And then Schedule B, making sure, just knowing, hey, is there anything that I need to know that I'm planning on doing with this property?
Exactly.
Is there anything that's going to really hinder it on this?
Is there anything, like you said, if I'm planning on doing a pool and it's basically telling me that I can't do a pool, then you're going to want to walk.
Right.
So those are the things. Or are there liens that we're not going to be able to cure prior to closing?
Was there an HOA that wasn't
disclosed?
That wasn't disclosed and wasn't in your contract package.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Yep.
That all of a sudden, realtors won't put in that HOA addendum. Oh, I didn't realize.
Whoops.
Oops.
Yeah.
That'll be caught on the Schedule B. And then the Schedule C is that most important one, to look through all of that and go, because depending on your title company that you close at, which I have unfortunately learned the very hard way in the last 12 months, depending on which title company you go to, not all of them are going to work to clear your title.
Yeah.
So if you have a lot of things that need to get cleared off of that,
you need a title company that's experienced in clearing those sort of things, because there are several title companies out there, and we talked about this when Teresa Myers was on the show, is that they're big box, they're doing volume. This one's going to take too much work. We don't do this.
They'll just turn it down.
Yeah. Sorry, we can't close this one for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I was told that, well, and again, it wasn't my choice on title company, but what I went through with with title on one thing that I had that had never been cleared when I bought it, and going back 15, 20 years of liens that had never been paid and nothing being cleared. It was a nightmare. I mean, we went through 3 title companies before I begged Teresa to help me. And, just so I could get I just want to start getting it cleared now before I get another buyer in here and we blow another 30 days, or they get scared off because they see this horrible commitment.
Yeah, so title companies, whereas a lot of people are like, I don't care what title. And typically buyers are not that good. They don't know. They close on a house once, maybe twice in their lifetime, But as real estate agents and as real estate investors, this is something that you need to be familiar with. You need to know that your title company is willing to jump through some hoops for you,
And as a realtor,
Yep.
if you are an agent and you get this title commitment and you look at it and you go, wow, you've got 2-3 pages of liens to clear, and I've seen it. I mean, you can have stuff that hasn't been cleared off, and it's just, it looks like just a rat's nest of stuff that needs to be done. You need to have the forethought to go to the title company and go, is this something you are going to handle?
And are we going to be able to do it in time? Because, some of these liens can take a while.
Well, and you can also hire outside sources. Casey Della, she will.
Yep.
She will, for a fee, obviously, step in and, for those really hairy title commitments, she'll go and help.
And try
and help clean title.
But that doesn't mean just because you can hire, some of them just take a while, and you won't be able to, if you're supposed to be closing in 2 weeks, and some of these you're going to have to do some tracking down, and it's multiple parties and all of this other business. Well, then you're going to have to push out closing. Are you okay with that? Do you have that kind of time? Do you have a place to live? So anyway, that's all really informative and definitely something that everybody needs to take a minute. What?
5 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I know it took us longer to talk through it, but if you're looking at this thing, that's 5 minutes. Yeah. Come on now.
Yeah, you can do it.
You can do it.
You can do it. Yeah, seriously, but I understand. I know what people do because I did it for so long, where I would just look at it and be like, I'm like, what is this? Or I would just go, oh, I don't need to read that right now.
Yep. But, I get that it may seem overwhelming or different language completely, but you can do it.
In a nutshell, realtors are not lawyers.
Nope.
So ask the title company any legal questions you have about anything you see on these documents. Don't go bug your realtor, because they don't know.
Exactly.
Title company works for you, put them to work. And bottom line, it is the buyer's responsibility
To double check this business.
well, and to make sure that, they're buying a property that they can do with it what they want to.
Exactly. Well, awesome. Thanks for breaking that down for us, Kristin. And you guys, if you have any questions, or maybe you got a hairy title commitment and you want to share it with us, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share it with us. We'd love to see it. We'd love to take a look, make some comments, and have that conversation.
And send this episode to all of your friends who you know are not reading title commitments. They need to know how to do it.
They need to know. Thanks for joining Real Estate Divas. I'm Jer'Leigh Thompson with Texel Real Estate and Real Estate Reformation.
And I'm Kristin Gerst with Capricorn Mortgage Investments.
Bye, you guys.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.